And we're back. Time to take our first major conversation right here on The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Well, Nigeria's House of Representatives Committee on Diaspora has promised to reintroduce the Diaspora voting bill in a bid to accommodate Nigerians living abroad. We brought you this information yesterday. If you recall, what we said was the chairman of the committee and a member representing Oluyole, a federal constituency, Tolulokpe Shodikpe, stated this on Thursday when the chairman and chief executive officer of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, Madam Abike Dabiri-Arewa, appeared before the committee. She was there to defend the Commission's 2023 budget and the 2022 budget performance review in Abuja on Thursday. Of course, lots of MDAs are doing that in these past few weeks. According to Shodikpe, the National Assembly will reintroduce the Diaspora voting bill, which was rejected during the constitutional amendment exercise. She said the bill for the diaspora voting would pass this time because this is the direction the world is going and Nigeria must not be left behind. Now, you recall that during the constitutional amendment exercise, the House of Representatives, Nigeria's parliament in March, the push for the diaspora voting it suffered a hit and a setback as the lawmakers rejected the bill outrightly. Will reintroduce bill of this nature scale through? It's a big question to ask. This time, will it be different? Is this what Nigerians need at this time? Glad to say we have joining us this morning. We earlier advertised that Festus Oguche, a constitutional lawyer, will join us, but I'm told that he just got into court. But Abraham, Great Public Affairs Analyst, who is in Canada, is back with us for a second time in 2 weeks. Abraham, Great, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me once again. Thank you. All
right. You are not just an expert in our discussion today, but you're a stakeholder. So I'll ask you a question from the point of being a stakeholder. Are you eager? Are you interested as a Nigerian in diaspora for many years to cast your vote in elections?
Well, I'm not looking at just the element of the casting of vote in terms of this bill since it was first introduced in 2016. In January 2016, the Diaspora Commission was formed, and the bill was presented, I think, in January of that year. And since the second hearing, it's almost like being washed away. One of the reasons why I think it was several senators, I think about 62 senators and 240 members of the House of Rep went against the bill is because of our fixation on the voting part of it. The commission in itself was established for engagement with Nigerians in the diaspora. And this is what I always say. Every Nigerian is a Nigerian. Every Nigerian is a Nigerian. It doesn't matter where they are Nigerian. The second thing that I see about this is that our lack of adapting the federalism that we copied from America is part of the reason why Nigeria is still backward today. We could have gone with every other kind of system of governance, like the parliamentary and stuff like that. But if we say we are federalism, every citizen is a citizen, every Nigerian is a Nigerian, no matter where they are. So, but there are sectors or sections of the country that do not understand what this actually means. So when we fix on just focusing on the voting right alone, it comes across to them as though we're trying to take something off the table. And I don't even know if you want me to go that deep right now.
Yeah, why not? Feel free.
Okay, so for me, I think that there is a bad marriage that was put together in 1904 that was called Nigeria. It's probably been made good now because of the fact that we have no choice for us to coexist and live in this marriage. But it was made worse or exacerbated in 1959 when we had the census before the independence. And that census has created a lot of ambiguity. And I'm sure that Nigerian elite know what I'm talking about. And we can read about this account also in Harold Smith's story, who was the administrator of the colonial masters at that time, to see the kind of ambiguity that existed in terms of how the country was zoned, censored, and what was put on the table. Since that time, it comes across that a certain sector of the country always have supremacy when it comes to election. That is why you see that electioneering, no matter where you are from, you have to bow to certain sector of the country in order for you to win election. We will attribute it by population, attribute it by landmass, and by so many other things. But some other part of the country think that is not equitable, and think there are some ambiguity, and will require a proper census. The best way that we all, will move this country forward is that for every section of the country to come together on the table and present our hands like this, clean, pure. Nigeria have a pure statistics, pure data, both of Nigerians in the north, in the east, in the west, in the south, in the southeast, southwest, or Nigerians in the diaspora. No matter where Nigerians are, we should be able to count every Nigerian, no matter where they are.
All right. So, but as much as that sounds very, optimistic and positive, do you think that with our current reality that we're ready, for diaspora voting? Sincerely.
Okay, so this is one of the reasons why, although I have never voted in Nigeria in my life, but I witnessed the only election I've actually witnessed in Nigeria was the 1993 election, after which, actually, my first passport in life, it was actually MK Abiola who directed me to Ibadan, himself who directed me to Ibadan at the passport office, or the person who helped me with my passport. So his election of 1993 was the only election I've ever witnessed in Nigeria. And I've been so interested because, last week we talked about brain drain in Nigeria. One of the ways that we can actually have brain gain is to be able to access and engage the human capital of our own country. And I'm interested in this election because I see a sector of some of the candidates are extremely interested in helping us to curate, the information that are available and to be able to relate with the Nigerians in the diaspora. That excites me. And the optimism that I see in many camps, not just one candidate, gives me excitement that we are. And it seems that every section of the country, from the vibes that I'm getting, understand why this needs to be back. And it seems that it comes across that there are more people on board, and it looks like this bill might eventually pass.
So I'm talking about, if we say that we need to have diaspora voting, we also need to understand that we have to make materials available. I mean, how? We just recently, have the electoral, bill, the acts, of course, for 2022. How exactly are we going to achieve that? I'm talking about the fact that we yet have not conducted census in, a very long time. We don't even know the number of persons that we have up until we're dependent on estimate. We also look at the issue of the smart card readers from when it was introduced in 2015. It had a lot of functionality issues. You're also talking about the, the beavers as well. With all of, the realities that we're faced with as a country, do you think that we're ready for diaspora voting? We matured. Is our democracy matured for this?
I would address it in two ways. Number one is that I would like to insist that when we're looking at the diaspora voting, the first approach we should have is to look at the diaspora bill. The diaspora bill is not just about voting. It is about the engagement of Nigerians in the diaspora with Nigeria. It is about, using the resources that are available, Nigerian resources, human capital that is abroad. And one of the ways we can get it right with voting is when we are able to leverage on the technological advancement and advantage of the countries where Nigerians are. There are many Nigerians that work in tech countries like we see in India. Almost all the tech industries in the world are headed by Indians. But when you check around the Indians, there are Nigerians that are creating great, apps, great things. So there is no reason why within a few months, Nigeria cannot develop the apparatus that are necessary or that are needed to conduct a very credible election. But integrity, you see, the integrity of the Nigerian nation at the moment is very low. So nobody trusts anybody. Nobody, even right now, people are not confident of the vote in Nigeria if their vote will count, let alone the vote in the diaspora. So we've got to be able to leverage on all that is available in terms of what is abroad, in terms of credible machines, credible technology that can assure Nigerians that either in Nigeria or outside of Nigerians, the voting system is credible. I believe, if you want me to answer direct, I do believe that we can make it happen, but not for this election period. It will be like a wish wash, and it will create room for malpractices. We need to prepare. We need to take time to prepare.
Abraham, great. The first time this first attempt to have this amendment to Nigeria's constitution, to allow diasporans to, like yourself, to be able to vote elections in Nigeria, was smashed. I mean, you look at the you had 469 federal lawmakers, 390 of them were present. Out of that, 87 voted in favor of diaspora voting, 269 voted against it. This was, what caused the bill to fail. After presentations and statements from INEC, statements from Abike Dabiri, same fate also befell the bill at the Senate, which is the upper legislative chamber in Nigeria. Now, I would like you to make a case for the amendment, of Section 77 and 117 of the Nigerian Constitution, or the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to allow for Nigerians living abroad like yourself to be allowed to vote. I want you to make a case. Of course, we're not even sure how many you are. Federal government, or the government records say 17 million. The United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, most recent estimate from 2020 says 1.7 million. So we don't really know how many. That's actually a problem. So what benefit will Nigerians in diaspora bring to the country by voting? Why should you be allowed to vote?
Okay, so first of all, let me try, and I thought it was about 240 members of House of Rep who voted against. And in terms of the numbers, this is another thing where the Nigerian nation has not gotten itself together. It's almost like a crime for you not to know the number of your citizens abroad. But data from various embassies from various countries suggest that there are over 17 million Nigerians, and less than 10% of those people are directly engaged with Nigeria. You look at Nigerian Twitter, for example, the higher percentage of people that are engaged on Nigerian Twitter are Nigerians in the diaspora. But here, if I get your question again, to make a case, do you want me to make a case to why it will pass this time? Or if you can repeat that question.
I'm saying
why
it wasn't. Mercy, sorry. It wasn't passed the first time, and there must be a reason why the members of the National Assembly shut it down. So why should they pass it this time? And asking you to make a case for you and your compatriots who live abroad to be allowed to vote.
Okay, first of all, every Nigerian clamors for constitutional amendment. But what we do not realize is that it's not until we tear the 1999 Constitution before we make amendment on the Constitution. The electoral bill that has just passed is a constitutional amendment. The energy bill is a constitutional amendment. There are so many acts. The startup bill that have just, be introduced is a constitutional amendment.
What benefit are Nigerians in diaspora bringing to an election is what I'm asking. Some have also raised questions about, the ability of Nigerians in diaspora to really relate with what is happening, in the country. I mean, you take pictures, in countries where you're in the snow. Some of your compatriots abroad taunt those who are at home, for being at home. You're not aware of the issues that affect Nigerians. Some will say, when you put the light, you turn it on in Canada where you are, it comes on, you have pipe-borne water, you have social security. Are you aware of the issues enough to vote? Some people will ask. I've heard these comments before. So why? What benefit? Yes.
There's a reason why I started with the Constitution, because what matters to a lot of Nigerians is that we talk about this Constitution. It benefits every Nigerian in the diaspora to know that we're now making effort. Number one, that we're making effort to amend the Constitution. And I'm saying all of these acts is already the beginning of restructuring Nigeria. So, for example, you see that the last election in Osun and what have you, even the most powerful political party lost. As a Nigerian in the diaspora, it makes me to begin to trust the electoral process even the more that Nigeria is advancing, that Nigeria will get there. Number two, if this amendment is passed, you'll be able to, somebody, I think is Finyo, we had a Twitter space on Sunday in one of the political parties, and someone was suggesting to the federal government that we might even be able to tax Nigerians in the diaspora, where our foreign policy now include that, yes, we talk about brain drain, we can have a relationship with this country and say Nigerian doctors, Nigerian nurses, Nigerians who work at this threshold, particularly those who are trained in Nigeria, when they pay their tax in their country, we want maybe 1% of that tax. We want 2% of that tax. That is a benefit to a Nigerian who knows that I now have pension in my country.
Would you like to pay tax to the you're is that what you're looking at what is already happening abroad? But question I'd like to ask as a follow-up is this.
I already pay tax to the country,
okay.
And I employ a lot of people that I pay tax in the country already.
All right, but follow, that's good, kudos. The follow-up is this, yeah. How does someone in the coldest part of Canada, maybe in Manitoba, for instance, or in Ontario, wherever it is, in Quebec, who has not been home for 12 years, how is he able to say, I want to vote in a senatorial or state house assembly election in Nigeria? How can he or she make an informed decision?
Okay, so one of the reasons why politicians deceive Nigerians is the fact that they talk abstract things. I'll say to you that if this bill is passed, every Nigerian will get 200 naira every day, and what have you. No. The major reason for this bill, if I can read it out, is to provide engagement of Nigerians in diaspora in policies, in poor projects. It means Nigerians in the diaspora can get involved in projects. A Nigerian in the diaspora can run for offices. A Nigerian in the diaspora can operate in Nigeria with ease. So all of these things will benefit all of us when the human capital of a Nigerian in the diaspora can be used to benefit Nigerians at home. When the money they make back in wherever they are can also be used in the country to get mortgages. So I give you a typical example. Nigerians who live abroad right now cannot easily buy a house. In Nigeria, we have to pay 100 million, 120 million to buy the house in Lagos, and we pay cash. But guess what? If this kind of bill are there and we can curate a system together, we can get mortgage like we do here. We can have a system where the job that I work here as whatever the job I am, maybe as a nurse or even as a cleaner, and then I can take that to a Nigerian bank to say, well, no, you know what, verify my job, and I want to buy a house in Omole Estate and or in Lekki or in Ikotu or what have you, and I will be able to pay from here, and I know I have a home. So there are more benefits. I'm sorry, I will not be able to go deep down into what makes everybody to join. I am more interested in the policy of this bill and how it has the intrinsic benefit to an average Nigeria when you talk of in terms of return on investment. So
the next question will be, I mean, as much as everyone is advocating that Nigerians outside of Nigeria or Nigeria are Nigerians, and so they do have a right to vote, and why they should vote, the question will go on and all of the argument. But it's about whether we have the laws in place, whether the environment is favorable enough, whether we have the technology or the know-how, to implement all of this is some of the questions that we need to answer. For instance, don't you think that we're already putting the cart before the horse? Especially when you look at in Nigeria right now, you want to ask yourself, how far have we fared with those who are living with disability, the vulnerable in our society? how much of inclusion do we have? That has always been a problem. Yes, we know that, INEC has reported that, the 2023 voter registration, you have 70%, but we're looking at, for real, when you have the time to vote, is it favorable? Are the conditions there, the provision? So are we really ready as the people will be the question. Are we not putting, the cart before the horse?
I'll agree with you that this bill does not have to be rushed, particularly in this election cycle, because I'm not sure that in terms of resources and in terms of manpower, Nigeria is ready to be able to implement. Don't forget, when a bill is passed, there is still has to be implementation. So that's why I'm saying the first progress we want to see is to be sure that this is passed. And then after that, we'll then begin to talk about the implementation, which might be in the next election cycle or the one after, whatever the case may be. But I believe that, this, among many other things, solve one of the several problems that we have. And Nigerians begin to see the hope that we're talking about. Almost every presidential campaign right now is riding on hope. When we see that we make proposal, when we see that we're talking about one aspect, like in this case, the diaspora voting, and other countries are doing it, and the federalism that we said we copy, this is exactly what they do. Every American will be able to vote no matter where they are. Then even the Nigerians at home or the Nigerians on the street, when they know that their cousin, their auntie, their brother, their mother from back wherever they are can vote, it creates joy. It's not only when we give people money on the street that we give them hope. Sometimes when we are agreeable with people, when government has empathy, when government listens to its people, there is joy in the country. There is connection between the administrators or the leaders or the rulers, as we may have at the moment, and the led.
Okay, Abraham, modus operandi is very important. I'd like you to tell me how you think this should work. I mean, you've experienced two systems, the North American system in Canada, the European system, parliamentary system in the UK. How should this work? Who should qualify as a diasporan voter, a Nigerian diasporan voter? We have different kinds of diasporans. You have those who are first generation, second generation, third generation, some with their grandfather, and over. It's a whole mixture, potpourri of Nigerians, of different grades, let's call it that, if for want of a better word, abroad. That's the first one. Second one, technicalities. Messi touched on that a bit earlier. How will this work? Will it be fiscal, in your opinion? To start with, should it be technological? That will also mean that we need to now amend the Constitution, Electoral Act rather, to allow for electronic voting, which is a very very, very controversial subject in Nigeria. So modus operandi in terms of the classification of the voters, and secondly, the method of voting. Do we have Nigerian, officials from the embassy or volunteers, have polling units in the different cities where you have Nigerians residing to say, okay, you can go to the nearest polling unit to cast your vote, etc. Over to you.
My preferred way, first of all, to answer your first question, my preferred way of governance would have been what Awolowo suggested to us, before Nnamdi Azikiwe went with the American federalism system, which is to have gone the way of the British, which is the parliamentary system of governance. That would have given us 6 regions in the country. And what would have mean, one of the things we may have copied is how we vote. Do you actually know that you in that studio can vote in the UK? If you get a visitor's visa to the UK today, do you know that every member of the Commonwealth country can vote in the UK elections without having a stake in the UK? So every country has who, because the first question you ask is who. But in the case of the federal system that we practice, only citizens, like in America, with my green card, I cannot, with a green card, I cannot even vote in America. But only citizens in America. So it means only Nigerian citizens of voting age, which is 18, can vote. Now let's go to how. How there should be, we're dealing with, one of the reasons why I'm able to do this, because this is 2 or 3 a.m., we're going 3 a.m. right now in Canada, is that I have been following the American election since Tuesday. and I follow almost everything. I'm addicted to American elections. And you realize that there is mail-in ballot, there is all kinds. In the UK, you can go into the polling station, you can mail it by box, you can also do online. We have those resources, and there are systems that can ensure the integrity. If Nigerians can vote on their phone for BBN and vote for, who was the last winner, maybe Lekon or something like that, and vote, and then the integrity of the vote is assured, there's no reason why we cannot even develop above some countries and vote by SMS. There's no reason why we cannot vote on the internet. There's no reason why we cannot go. We cannot really rely on the embassy.
But this is a tall order. I remember I mentioned the fact that it's really not been accepted. Electronic voting right now has not been enshrined in the laws, the Electoral Act, the Nigerian Constitution, and we just only managed to be able to accept electronic transmission of votes. I doubt that the laws could be amended to allow electronic voting, and then it will only be applied to those in the diaspora, because of course Nigerians will demand it. And the country right now, it seems, is not ready. You look at the resources it will take. You look at the integrity of the system, and even also you look at data coverage. It's been said that we don't have 100% data coverage in the country. So that will be a remote possibility, maybe something in some decades to come, to see the Nigerians, from what we're seeing and hearing, that electronic voting, where you can sit in your house, press your phone and just vote, will be accepted. We don't have a database at all, a database that is reliable, So is this really possible? Is this really possible? Then also I was asking about, we have Nigerians who probably are also citizens of other countries, for instance, have 2 passports, etc. Should they be allowed to? But that's what I'm looking at. Yeah. So you can.
So what we're looking about deals with the section 71 and I think 117 of the Constitution. But in terms of the right to, in terms of citizenship, the section 21 of the Nigerian Constitution already deals with that in terms of dual nationality and stuff like that. So it doesn't matter. There are Americans who are voting last week who holds Nigerian passport. There are Nigerians who are members of the House of Rep, or that may even go for Senate, who also holds Ghanaian passport. So that one may not be inconsequential, because if the law of the citizenship or dual nationality is clearly explained in the Constitution, then who can run for offices will be clarified in the Constitution. But in terms of how it should be, I agree with you in terms of, yes, we've made advancement in terms of electronic transmission. But you have to understand that it's not that the Nigerian state cannot afford or cannot develop for us to be able to vote electronically. There are all kinds of fraud that goes on in Nigeria. And I want you to understand, one of the reasons why people are opposing this bill also, do you know what it is when you're talking about there are 17 million Nigerians outside of Nigeria? And do you know what it means when there is a section of the country at the minute that dictates the election, that swings the election? Do you know that majority of Nigerians in the diaspora are from the seemingly marginalized section of the country in terms of electioneering? Do you know that the dynamics of the Nigerian integrity in voting changes the moment the election? So there are all kinds of politics that are going on in this transmission or electronics. Nigeria is too wealthy. If we want the best of technology, we can implement them. Technology is not like maybe we're trying to dig a hole right now, or we're trying to, structural adjustment. We're talking about technology. It will take us maybe a few months or maybe 2 years to put together the best of technology to be able to gather data, to be able to vote for Nigerians in all sectors. But we can even start from the diaspora. So the UK government, the US government, they want you in their country, but they said go to a specific place and go and thumbprint or do biometrics. And they have the integrity, knowing that the biometrics can be done. When Nigeria started BVN, many of us did not come to Nigeria for our BVN. There were centers in the countries where we live, where we go and do our BVN. And you
No,
have a
no, no.
BVN
So
number, you
I
have a
think
PIN
that
number.
great. I think that your comparison. I understand how everyone, especially you, because you're a person of interest here, and so you're really. It would be very exciting for you to be part of the electoral process, and everyone wants that to happen. But unfortunately, we also need to consider some basic issues. I mean, yes, we know that recently the argument has been put out, or the argument that you have right now is that if we have the backings of INEC and the backing of the Diaspora Commission, and then who can stop, anything from becoming a reality? You have also mentioned that the time frame, looking at it, is almost impossible. And so what happens to the context or the concept of uniformity? So then you're going to have some people in diaspora who are transmitting or casting their vote electronically via technology, and then you have the people in Nigeria who are casting their votes, via the normal process, and then allow it to be transmitted. It doesn't really make sense. Is there any need for this particular kind of rush? And my next question is: do you see the possibility of a miracle happening? Despite all of the concerns that we have, we think that it's too early, like you have mentioned. And there are also concerns from various quarters saying you would need the legislation, you would also need technology and data. And these are not issues that are favorable to us at this time. So, peradventure, we wake up tomorrow. Is it possible that we can wake up tomorrow, next tomorrow, before the elections, and hear that there might just be a yes to diaspora voting?
I agree with you totally, but I would be, if we understand process, we realize that there is no need to rush ourselves. When a bill goes before the House, it has to go through the first hearing, the second hearing. Even when the bill is passed, the president will still have to assent or ratify, and then it will have to go to every state for implementation and stuff like that. I don't see this bill taking effect for this election cycle in February. There is no way. It's not possible. It's not going to happen. What I'm saying, because I understand the process, what I'm saying is that it's most likely under the new administration, whoever wins the election, that this bill will even pass or be implemented. I'm saying that we have enough time to put the system in play that benefits everybody. And if I can say this strong statement, this is one of the ways we can lead the world. There's no reason why Nigeria cannot lead the world in technology, either for voting, for anything else. We don't have to do catch-up of 70 years back. We can develop a technology that other nations have not done. It might have some bit of issues at first, but we will make it better and better. We don't always have to do catch-up. We're a great nation.
But
we are good people who think.
So we don't have to do catch-up, but that's a different thing. This is Nigeria, and our case is peculiar. You can't even try to dabble with that. For instance, I remember in 2015 when we introduced the smart card readers to our election. It was just the first time you had an introduction of technology, in administering our election. And then we had the fact that in different polling units, of course, which I monitored these elections in local, communities, in the rural communities, these smart card readers were not functional. And why were they not functional? For certain reason, because this is not what we actually made. It's not our technology. We don't know how it functions. And so it needs a lot of training. And looking at the time where it was introduced and the period of training, it's a lot. Are we really in any competition? I understand that we say we need to leverage on other people's experience, but it feels like that's not even our path for Africa and Nigeria as a people. So why don't we, rather gradually study the dynamics and study what's going on and fix the basics before we begin to move to all of this? It will be interesting. Everyone wants to, cast their vote electronically, especially with the security concerns, but we're not ready.
I don't know why I'm always agreeable with you. Everything you say seems in line, but I've got to also remind you that one of the things that President Goodluck Jonathan should be remembered for is, bringing about those machines and introducing that kind of voting in 2015. There were some issues with it, and it seems to be bettered in the next election cycle in 2019. I recall at that time, because I was heavily involved with that election, in the camp that won or what have you. I remember that a lot of issues with jammers, with this and that, and then the other parties trying to find counter jammers and stuff like that because they are new. And because our country, there is no integrity in the election. I mean, I'm maintaining this. And if there's anything, no matter who I support, if there's anything I want to see, is the integrity of our electioneering processes. What I'm saying is the technology will help us to achieve integrity faster. The quicker we get onto the technological side and start doing the human part, you have people complaining at the moment underage voting. So no matter which way you go, the way forward is technology. We are not that. Every Nigerian, even the one that are selling suya, operate a smartphone, has WhatsApp. They have apps on it. The world has gone forward. Let's force our mind to know. We have to force government, we have to force administrators to do the right thing. America, as we speak, have issue with some of their machine, with some of their printers. Even when we get the technology, we will have some issues. We will rectify it, but that is the way we should go.
All right, Abraham. For me, it's about the technicality of the whole situation. As Mercy has pointed out as well, as I pointed out also earlier, the modus operandi of this diaspora voting is something that is yet to be resolved. If we talk about electronic voting, of course, countries like Brazil, Australia, Estonia have implemented it. Well, still, Estonia, in my memory, is the only country that has successfully implemented e-voting or electronic voting, if you want to call it that, totally successfully. And this was after they spent years, decades even, with targeted investment in that for that kind of voting. For Nigeria, some will argue, Abraham, that we don't have a legal framework yet. Because if we look at the bill just focuses on amending sections 77 and 177 of the Nigerian Constitution. Is it 177 or 117? Sorry, of the Constitution. It taking words like if you go to section 77, talking about direct election and franchise. Taking words like, substituting words like in, all right, in clause 2 of section, in subsection A of section 77. Taking words like in, immediately after the word residing in, and substituting with words like within or outside. That's all they're doing. You go to, so it now would read, thus, every citizen of Nigeria who has attained the age of 18 years residing within or outside Nigeria compared to what it was residing in Nigeria at the time of registration of voters for purposes of election. So that's that. It talks about also, if you go to section 117, the eligibility in terms of age. Initially, or the new subsection 3 will be added thus: to be eligible to vote in accordance with the subsection 2 above, the citizen of Nigeria must fulfill the following obligations, have a valid Nigerian, like you said, all those things. But if you go to the third clause, direct election and franchise of 117, everything here doesn't talks about your eligibility and how you should be described, just the words. 117 sub A, they're removing the word in immediately after the word residing and putting it within or outside. So it will now read, every citizen of Nigeria who has attained the age of 18 years residing within or outside Nigeria at the time of... There's nothing here to look at amending the Constitution to allow for Nigerians to electronically vote. And that will be a challenge. That will be a challenge. Right now, we do not have the legal framework. If this bill passes, I do not know if there's any other thing they've added there to provide a legal framework for such. You understand? You look at the institutional structures, you look at the legal regulations, harmonization, logistical challenge, technological infrastructure facilities, not just outside Nigeria, but within Nigeria, to allow electronic voting, to be successful. That's what I asked you, will it be more of a fiscal thing for now, let's say in 2027, for instance, where you go to the nearest city and go to a community hall or community center and cast your vote?
So I love the fact that you've gone into the details of the technicalities, but you're looking at the Constitution. So when the Constitution is amended, you have to go back to refer to the act itself. So there will be more details in the act. The act will serve as addendum, because that's where the amendment or what has been suggested, the rules, the criteria will be in details. And even though as Nigerians we like to go on the street to protest, it is things, the details you've gone into right now, these are the real protests that we should be protesting against. When we see ambiguity, when we see lack of clarity in our constitution, in the bill, in the Land Use Act, in the Electoral Act, in what have you, that is the real thing. Those are the things that change the nation. That's the thing that make it difficult for the leaders to mislead us. So we can see that with those technicalities, we can challenge them. You and I can challenge them. Ordinary citizen can ask for the amendment of those things. But going back into Estonia being able to implement electronic voting, Estonia is not even up to the size of Alimosho.
Maybe that's why they were successful. Maybe that's why they were successful. Yeah.
Estonia, the whole of the country is 1.3 million, I think, 1.3 million people. It's like certain countries. I've been to some countries, that the entire country, I drive the entire country in a night, like Luxembourg. They're not even up to maybe 200,000 people. That's the country. I drive to Luxembourg and Belgium and come back to my house in Milton Keynes when I was in the UK the same day. So, but Nigeria not only have huge population, we have very serious diversity. And I always say that our diversity is the cause for the complexity that we have in Nigeria.
Oh, really?
So, and if we must address it, when we're dealing with intricate issues like this by letter, we must also look at how those wording affect our diversity. Because one word worded one way affects another section of the country. I believe that this bill can pass anytime, and I believe that the bill can be amended and it can be implemented and resources in place for the next election after this election. I believe if the political will is there, the resources are there, the human capital to make it happen very much there, there's no reason why we cannot have diaspora voting by 2027.
All right. Abraham, thank you very much. 2027 is your target, but I think you also need to now begin to consider if you're willing to drive some distance to maybe the state capital or the nation's capital, in Canada to cast your vote if you really have that interest, and love for Nigeria and, interest to be able to have a say in the elections. It may be a possibility that if this bill passes, you have to cast your vote physically. And the question is, are you ready to do that, to drive a long distance to go cast that vote physically? I need a quick yes or no from you.
Nigerians do a lot. Nigerians travel from Toronto to Ottawa, which is 5 hours drive, to get a passport. Nigerians fly 6 hours from Vancouver to come to Ottawa to Nigerian embassy. Right. Nigerians travel. I help a lot of Nigerians to get their passport sorted in London. Right. Nigerians will travel from Scotland to come to London to come and get their passport.
You've answered the question.
Yeah, so Nigerians would do anything to be able to vote. Every Nigerian wants a great Nigeria.
All right, Abraham, great. Thank you so much for giving us your thoughts robustly, and firmly. We appreciate your time, and you've made a wonderful case for Nigerians living abroad to be allowed to vote. It's going to be a big challenge because you have several countries, involved, but let's see how it plays out. Abraham, Great Public Affairs Analyst, reaching his live video link from Canada. Thank you very much for your
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed having both of you. Thank you, Mercy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you both. Thank you.
This has been great speaking with you, and that's the size of a conversation this morning. But whether or not we agree with Nigeria being a diverse country and the fact that that's the issue, what happens to India? If you missed out on any part of it, then you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Mercy Bopo. Many thanks for watching.
And my name is Kofi Bartels. We'll return tomorrow, Wednesday, for more on The Breakfast. Please stay with us. The news at 9 is up next.